All right. Are you guys ready for this? Because I'm not sure if I'm ready for this. I'm going to try and keep this a reasonable length video. Because I was going through and kind of mentally preparing, and I realized I could probably make this go for like 2 hours. But so the plan here is just start from the bottom and go up to the top. And talk about each team. I got my drink. I got my Ravens gear. And it's time to talk some Dynasty fucking fantasy football. Let's go. All right. It was actually kind of a challenge to figure out how to make this look good. Sleeper on desktop is kind of a pain in the ass, but I think this is nice. So here we have Mr. Thiegel himself, the beginning of his Dynasty fantasy obsession. This is the first team I think he ever did, right? And it is a super cool like rebuilding project that he's got started here. Right off the bat, it's kind of funny to like kind of look at the disaster that Zach Wilson had in week 2 here, but it's the Patriots. He's got an interesting skill set. I think he's an interesting, fantasy superflex quarterback to work with. So I'm certainly not giving up on him yet. And he's got Fields as well, who is getting his first career start this weekend. So that should be really fun to watch. So that's a cool quarterback duo of young guys to, hopefully at least one of these hits and becomes a every week QB1 kind of guy. But, I mean, it's possible that neither of them hit. And if that's the case, at least you got a nice... Look at all these picks. Jesus. You'll be able to find quarterbacks, I think. And looking beyond that, the running back situation is looking pretty nice for you. I know a lot of people are kind of bummed with how Denver's running game has looked so far. Holy crap, with the orange of the Broncos, I would just look like I look like a fruit. Anyway, only 41% snap share is a little bit interesting, but, he's just a rookie. They got Melvin Gordon there. This team's actually legit, and they're winning games. And I think they'll continue to win games. This looks like a schedule that Denver could be looking for a wild card spot, especially with Bridgewater playing pretty well there. Nice, almost 5 yards per carry here. Not really getting involved yet in the passing game, but I like this guy. I think he's a nice young option. Darrell Henderson's fine, but we all know Cam Akers is the real running back of the future here, so I don't know like what this guy's future looks like. So that's kind of, this could be a player that Thiegel looks to trade, just given the timeline of your team. Same with Allen Robinson. I think you put him on the trade block, which I think would be an interesting player to send away. He's obviously uber talented. I guess you should probably wait and see just how it works with Justin Fields first. Sutton, they had an absolute gigantic monster week, so he looks like he's back, which is really nice to see. He's an awesome player, and he could be like a wide receiver 1 like level player the next couple of years. So, I mean, the more I look at this team, the more it's looking really nice. Rondale Moore was absolutely monstrous this past week too, and he's not even on the field half the snaps yet. Like, can you imagine what this guy could do if he's getting like 85% of the snaps? I mean, just when you combine this guy's kind of ability with what Kyler can do, just kind of running around the field, doing whatever the hell he wants, and then suddenly he makes some crazy throw to an open player. It's a combo that could yield a lot of fantasy points. So this is another just real nice, young, foundational piece that you're building here. But now to the kind of not so great. Ayuk, everybody's like, what is going on? I could not tell you. I don't know what is happening here. So you want that to turn around, certainly. But the age and the talent are definitely there. Question marks on this guy. Noah Fant, he still hasn't really made the leap that I've been hoping to see from him yet. I think he was on my team, since the initial draft, and then we had an interesting little trade there. So a solid tight end, but still just kind of question marks, I think, for him. He gets hurt a lot, and there's a lot of weapons actually in Denver now all of a sudden. And then down here, we're getting into, just some decent bench options. And then I felt kind of bad that I traded you Dobbins and then he got hurt like right away. On the other hand, though, given the timeline of your team, that's not even really that bad, I think, for you, because you'd be starting him and he'd probably be doing well this season, and you don't want to win yet. You have your own first and your own second and stuff, so it's not even that bad. Same with ETN. So really, I mean, this is looking like a 2 to 3 years maybe loaded team. But for this season, obviously, you're not going to be competing really. You'll probably sneak a dub or two from somebody, especially if Sutton is, keeps it up. But I like what you're doing here. It's really cool. Michael Carter is another, like, I just snagged him in our other league. I liked what I saw. I watched his highlights from this New England game. He had some sweet plays where he was making defenders miss, and he ran a couple of routes and got a couple little out passes. I mean, a lot of that depends on how well Zach Wilson shapes up, but I don't know. Maybe they'll start getting this guy more involved. Curtis Samuel, another, like, damn. I think he could be real nice in Washington. So, good stuff here, especially with all these picks. I mean, hell, maybe even, like, a couple of these guys take the next step next year. You get a couple nice rookies in 2022, and then use, like, package some of this stuff for upgrades, and you're competing as early as next year, So, good stuff. Even though you're going to be bottom of the rankings for pretty much the whole season. So let's move on to Raw Dog, where I'm not sure how to... Well, first of all, fill in these bench spots. What are you doing? But beyond that, you have an interesting mix of, like, young pieces and then some question marks. Like, what are you doing at tight end? What do you do if this doesn't pan out? You have literally no one quarterback-wise otherwise. Unfortunate injury here for sure. And, like, you might have missed out on the peak value you could have gotten out of James Robinson. It's not looking good there right now. It doesn't mean he can't turn it back around, but it's like, that's kind of rough feeling. T. Higgins is obviously a great player and, super high potential, but also it's like, it's a lot of mouths to feed in Cincinnati. I almost think that his value has dropped since his rookie year. I'm not sure what you're doing with your flex here. You're definitely missing out on some depth. I guess Jacoby Myers and Chenault are really nice bench spots, but yeah, it's looking okay here. Obviously, Herbert, great piece to have. DeAndre Swift, great piece to have. Even though the first couple weeks, obviously he was a monster on in the passing game this week, but wasn't looking quite as good this week. I mean, you really need him to turn into, like, Alvin Kamara type player, which is certainly his ceiling. And AJ Brown has been, he's been dropping balls like crazy too. I don't know. And they got Julio, and the Titans in general just aren't looking quite as good. So your future outlook is solid, but definitely not tops in the league. And your short term outlook is not even solid. Like, there's just some serious holes here. You just don't really have anybody for your flex or your tight end, and your super flex spot is going to be really shaky this year, I think. And there's just not a whole lot down here to patch up the holes. So I'd probably be looking. You don't have your first anymore, but you still got a couple of juicy picks. I'd be looking to package something and get, like, a proven kind of middle of their career type of option, especially at tight end. Like, this guy's not going to cut it, right? I wonder what. I wish I knew like what your tight end situation was before. Were you rocking Hunter Henry last season? Probably. I mean, I'd be starting him over this guy. I guess this guy's scoring more points, but only because of this TD. I don't know. It's rough. I'd be looking to upgrade, and especially fill out your bench slots. You might as well, just throw in some dart throws, put some handcuffs back in here or something. So, all right, let's take a look at Stags, which is looking pretty nice. I know you've been going for the kind of tank route, but I kind of prefer where Thiegel's at. Part of the problem is that, a lot could change, but the 2022 draft right now is not looking that exciting to me. So, it's cool to own like an entire draft, but also like, what are you getting? Like Spencer Rattler, but also, well, I guess yeah, you're definitely gonna want a quarterback. But then when I look at the running backs and whatnot, there's some solid guys, but they're only solid. There's nobody that's like Saquonish. There's nobody that's like Jamar Chase looking, Justin Jefferson looking, crazy wide receivers. So you really want to hope that Joe Burrow continues to, figure things out. I honestly think that his ceiling as a fantasy player might not be super high. Like he might be a better real life player than fantasy player. Like, he's not really. I mean, I guess he had 142 rushing yards last season, and he ran 3 TDs in. But I don't know. Maybe he'll start to really sling it and like Aaron Rodgers it around with his crazy wide receiver core, and especially with Jamar Chase. This is like the savior of the current state of your team. I think him and CeeDee Lamb are your big ones. You need both of these guys to be kind of like wide receiver one type, guaranteed high production every week kind of players. I guess Deshaun Watson is something that you couldn't have predicted. There's no word whatsoever when he's coming back, as far as I know. So this could be just straight up like 1.10 of the startup draft was absolutely nothing, which would be really awful luck for your team. And obviously, there's not a whole lot down here. Jerry Jeudy obviously could be. He was looking really nice week 1. It's a huge bummer that happened to him. But other than that, and this is a big question mark too, you just don't know when he's going to get out there. And when he does, will he be good? I have him in the other league, so obviously I'm kind of banking on it too. But I just don't see as clear of a path to success here as the other tanking team in our league, unless some big names start to really crank it up in the college season that I'm not seeing right now. Like you'll get like an RB2 and a couple of nice wide receiver 2s or something pretty much guaranteed out of these picks, but are those gonna propel you into contention? What does your 2023 look like? You have like all of that draft too. I mean, it's impossible for me to say what's going to be in that draft. So there's just too much to project long term here. But I would rather be Thiegel if I was tanking. All right, Gallows. We're starting to get into the teams that have a lot more like kind of win now pieces. And we're at 1-1 now. There's a lot of 1-1 teams. Only 2 2-0 and only 2 0-2. But here we have some real nice, Matt Stafford's playing pretty well to start the season. Jalen Hurts is a really awesome quarterback to be working with right now. Sucks that Tua. I don't know when Tua's gonna be a fantasy relevant kind of player. He just doesn't. He could take another step for sure, but it's definitely been rough so far. But you got guys like Thielen and, Terry McLaurin's going to do what he does. And Claypool has been kind of rough to start the season. Nothing too amazing, but he's going to be starting to, pull in touchdowns, I'm sure. The Steelers always feel like they get better at offense as the year goes on. Stupid Roethlisberger. You really want Trevor Lawrence to start getting his shit together, that's for sure. This was how do you don't see 12 targets, 3 receptions very often. That's for sure. And down here, there's a lot of just kind of questionable and inconsistent pieces. You never know what you're getting out of Ronald Jones. Mostert is just what he is at this point. Jamal Williams could be awesome, or he could do nothing. Higgins, I've been waiting for him to take a leap for a long time, and it just doesn't seem like it's going to happen. Gallup, there's too many pieces here. MVS is one of the most inconsistent receivers I've ever seen. It's not all bad. You still have your first, which is not many teams can say. But it's just looking solid, but iffy here. Hurts is a super awesome foundational piece. What a great pick. Who could have predicted that? I mean, we're talking this is maybe like a top 5 fantasy quarterback moving forward. This is like his floor practically. A bad passing game, but a real nice rushing game still. He's almost Lamar-ish or Kyler, just with his ability to make plays happen, even if he's not throwing well that day. So, stuff to build off of, but there are, better looking teams out there. If I was with this roster, I would probably try to, I don't know, like package away Tua or something for somebody. See what I could do with that. Maybe throw in like Mostert for a team that's looking to compete next year or something like that. Okay. All right. So let's look here where Mr. Picard has a hell of a team. He should probably be higher. I think he'll be higher than 8th. That's for sure moving forward. Just some wonky stuff. Like Tyreek had a really bad game against Baltimore. Eckler's been really solid to start the year, which you love to see. Cook, when he's healthy, he's just an absolute animal. So you really need health on this roster. You got to get Landry out here. I'm not sure. I think you said you need help managing your team this season, so maybe I should do something about that. Put Golladay in or something. But yeah, there are lots of really strong kind of win now pieces here. But then when you look towards your youth, it's like, what exactly is here? You don't trade away your picks, nor do you trade for picks. So you can definitely get youth and develop it. But is there a single person here? I guess Paris Campbell is young. Boy, does he get hurt like a mofo. I feel bad for this guy. Such high talent. But yeah, once your roster's aging and you didn't win the title last year, and I'm not sure it's quite top of the league level this year. Debo and Tyreek and Cook and Aaron Rodgers. I mean, there's some obviously monstrous pieces here. This guy, oof.com. I'm just not too sure what you're going to get out of this guy moving forward. What a shit show this performance was, too, including a game-losing fumble. Like, they had a field goal to beat Baltimore, and he fumbled it off. So it's looking spooky here. I would be super tempted if, you're not going to be 8th, but if it's, like, kind of late in the season and you're still kind of 4th, 5th, 6th, maybe you sell off a big piece or two for some picks. Like you sell off Tyreek or something. Or at least that's kind of where my head would be if we got to later in the year. just try to get younger. Tyreek's 27. You got, one, like, knee injury and his speed is gone and he's never the same player, So that kind of thing would start to scare me moving forward. But you're going to win games this year and you'll probably make the playoffs, so it's looking pretty good for you. Some bad luck early season. You'll climb the ranks. All right, let's take a look at Scar. The fella who got Mahomes, so you never have to worry about that. Oh, man, and Derek Carr is such a nice, like, rejuvenated piece this year. Holy shit, he's playing well. Against badass defenses, too. I mean, I like what Oakland has done. They got a nice team brewing there. So those are all awesome pieces, and Mac Jones is a solid, Will he be a great fantasy quarterback, like, ever? I don't know. He kind of reads like a Alex Smith-ish or something kind of game manager guy that will win games but not necessarily get you very many fantasy points. But he's, obviously, young quarterback in Superflex. That's a valuable player. Najee has been really bad on the ground, but has had a couple of monster plays. It's just, his snap percentage is so ludicrous that he's still an extremely valuable piece. So that's looking really nice for you so far. I love Damian Harris. I think he's a monster. I think his snap percentage in this game is a little bit scary, though. A game where they absolutely crushed the Jets. You'd think that he would get a lot of groundwork, but this also suggests to me that when he's in the game, they're giving him the ball pretty much. Like 16 rushing attempts and a target. I'll take that. I have him in the other league, so I've been watching him pretty closely. He's super good. He just lost that one fumble and people were worried, but I'm not too worried about him. I think he's going to be a nice, real strong floor player. Your receivers, on the other hand, though, are pretty concerning to me. Miami's trying to get Waddle involved quite a bit, but it's like little dink and dunk plays a lot, so it could be a solid PPR floor. Deontay Johnson is obviously a PPR fucking machine. Like, holy shit, this guy gets a lot of targets. But that injury's spooky. Aguilar, unless your name is Jacoby Myers, I don't really want a wide receiver on the Patriots right now. Hawkinson, obviously, great fantasy piece. He has really become like one of the top tier tight ends, so that's looking great for you. I'm not a Miles Sanders fan. Down here, the depth is looking okay. You could have had a real nice piece here if this shit hadn't been such a disaster. Michael Thomas is very interesting, but also, like, it's been 2 years since he's done anything relevant. He went from having one of the craziest wide receiver seasons of the past couple decades to just being nobody. And he's got COVID. The Saints are not looking like the same team. I mean, that Panthers loss was really kind of spooky to me. But then you got some nice youth down here. I could see Rager continuing to make some strides. He had a real nice deep bomb touchdown that was called back by penalty. So, like, it's not as bad as it looks in that game. Ruggs, obviously, had this big game here. So, I like a lot of what I'm seeing on your team. You just need, like, one of your receivers down here to really take the next step, or for Thomas to become what he was. Because Aguilar is not going to cut it, I don't think, on a team that's trying to win a championship in this league. Mike Davis is a neat little, flexible type player. And you have a nice amount of picks. No first, but, you could get some nice depth from this. Maybe this guy starts doing things. But also, maybe not. Like, what is this snap share so far? All right. The reigning champion, Mr. Zami. Still a real nice looking team. But your running back situation is interesting. Because it's he's been playing pretty well, but it's also just kind of hard to predict what the Bills are going to do with their running backs. Zeke is, I don't even know what he is anymore. It's like he's not even the best running back on his team right now. And then your depth is question mark. Yeah, I could see Jeff Wilson being a nice piece once he comes back, but we all know San Francisco is gonna churn through like 60 running backs this season. So the real highlight of your team though is in this little section where it's like this is like 3 wide receiver ones right now. I think DJ Moore is gonna have his breakout year and become elite this season. I mean, this is looking real nice, and Sam Darnold's playing real well. And we all know what this man's been doing, and we all know what this man's capable of. So this is going to be a lot of fantasy points all year round. Robert Woods, definitely not too shabby either. Your depth down here is workable. Pascal's playable. Corey Davis is playable. Just not against New England. But he had a real good game against Carolina. I could see him having good games. Your tight end, did I trade him to you? No, Gallows did. He'll have solid games, I think. But Zach Ertz is still there. So your tight end is maybe to be worried about. But just about everybody does, unless you have Kelsey, Waller, Kittle, Hawkinson, and Pitts. We're getting to that here in a minute. So I mean, this is looking really nice. You just have to patch like one hole, but you're so elite at wide receiver, and I didn't even really mention Josh Allen, obviously a beast. He hasn't been putting up the fantasy points yet, but he's going to. Yeah, when you're this elite at wide receiver like this, it can work anyway. So would I be shocked if this is a repeat championship team? Nope. Especially if you can make a sneaky little trade. Or maybe just Singletary just keeps playing well. In which case, this is a real nasty team. So, some good shit. And also, maybe you have to start Heineke over Baker at some point. I can't believe... I wish I had Heineke. Damn it. All right. My man Josh. We have the Ageless Wonder to start off with. What a fucking freakish psychopath. You got a lot of quarterbacks down here, but they're not that exciting. It's kind of... Who knows? Maybe Taysom Hill still gets in there if Jameis Winston keeps pooping it up. Saquon and Hunt, solid little running backs, but like inconsistent is kind of the issue with those. Saquon's a workhorse, but he's one of the most unique workhorse running backs I've ever seen, in that like he either goes absolutely bonkers or he just averages like 2 yards a carry and does nothing. So the games where you get 3 points from him, it's like hard to win. I'm impressed you're even 5th in the standings right now. Where are your points even coming from? Brady and Waller and Cooks, actually. And speaking of Waller, this guy can win you weeks by himself, especially in a 1.5 tight end league. Marvin Jones has been really nice, actually. Holy shit. Check that out. 31 years old with a rookie quarterback. It's pretty cool to see. Your quarterbacks are nice, but I guess I can see why you're kind of hoarding some quarterbacks, because you never know. I mean, he might play till he's 78. He might, finish up at 45 or something. It's tough to say. Your wide receivers are nice. You could use a little bit more youth, I think. But in terms of doing well this year, there's some serious pieces here. Darnell Mooney could be a real key piece moving forward. Low on picks, so that could hurt. with this youth problem because, we got 27. He's young. 29, 31. So something to keep an eye on. Unfortunately, it looks like this guy is not getting it done. 2 TDs in this game, though. That's weird. So not a lot of running back depth, but looking really nice. And you probably need some younger wide receivers, some running back depth. Try to get a rookie quarterback, and I mean you're really set for a long time. Looking good. Now into the main event. The best team, the best manager. We got Super Lamario. This running back duo I'm really happy with, even though Taylor's having some inconsistencies. I think he's gonna be fine. The biggest hole in my roster, I think, is I need a wide receiver 1. But with the way things are turning out with Mr. Williams here, I might just have it out of this guy. They have been using him differently. They got like a new offensive coordinator there. Another year of development for Herbert. It's starting to come together for Mike Williams. He was drafted like 6th overall in his real life draft, so like the draft pedigree and talent is absolutely there. He's a massive, just super good player, and I'm very happy about it. I got Odell Beckham coming back this week that I'm excited to watch too. Sterling Shepard, just the PPR god. Marquise Brown has been playing great. Michael Pittman had this huge week, so really I am really excited about a lot of what's on my roster. The problem is I just don't know who to play each week. Like I guess I'll just do it right now. Oh no, I can't do it on this screen. It's probably Shepard over Boyd or something, and then maybe I probably keep Odell on the bench this week, but I don't know. My 2 quarterbacks are awesome. My 2 running backs are awesome. Chase Edmonds been very solid, little flex guy this year. I have a lot of wide receiver 2 options. This is a huge gamble that I went all in on, and I hope it keeps paying off. It looked just fine for me last week, but Atlanta doesn't look that great in general. Their schedule doesn't really soften up for a while. Even after the bye, Miami, good defense. Carolina, good defense. New Orleans, good defense. Dallas, bad defense. But then here's another tough defense. And, so I'm a little bit worried about this. Not long term. Certainly not long term. But this year, a lot of this feels like a championship contending roster. Except if my tight end isn't producing. But I still got Logan Thomas down here, just in case. Maybe I play the matchup some week. So far, it's just been Pitts in there without even thinking about it. But Logan Thomas is a real player. In terms of depth, I have a ton of depth at wide receiver, but at running back, it is spooky. So that's why I grabbed Tyson Williams. It was kind of a knee-jerk accept when Stags offered the Tyson for a second. But I feel good about it. I think this is not a long-term piece, but he's going to be real good all season. And he's also averaging a nice, juicy 6.5 per carry. Sign me up. A lot of that's the system, but it's working. Other than that, maybe Cordero Patterson is a real fantasy piece. I'm definitely holding him for now. But other than him, my running back depth could definitely be improved. And then I have these flyer quarterbacks that maybe someday do something. If one of them pops, they could be a trade piece for me. Garoppolo is okay quarterback depth for this year. It's just a, bye week. I toss him in there. But I'm really happy with what I got going here. I have no picks. So what I got here has to work, but I think it's going to. And it's doing really well so far. I have the 3rd highest points for in the league through 2 weeks. So, all right. How about Mike Bear? Dude is absolutely exploding this year so far. I mean, this roster is kind of silly. I joked in the Discord recently, like, how did we let this happen? This is the best starting roster. I mean, the RB1, the RB2 probably. It was bad last week, but he's gonna destroy fools. I mean, let's be real. Diggs was what last year? The wide receiver 3. Jefferson was wide receiver 6 last year. Amari is just really good. We got fucking Gronk, the touchdown machine. He's got 4 already this season somehow. We got like another monstrous like wide receiver 1 type player. But the question mark is quarterback on this team. Bridgewater's going to be nice. This is really nice. Kind of tough schedule. He's going to have games where he just game manages, I think, and doesn't get a whole lot, but it's nice. Here, though, a tale of two. He's a very confusing player. You don't know what you're going to get out of Jameis. There's going to be weeks where he gets you 5, and that's not going to be great in your super flex, but there are weeks where he's going to throw 5 touchdowns. So I don't know what's going on here. And Roethlisberger has not looked like a fantasy startable quarterback. These are not fantasy startable quarterbacks. It doesn't look like you're going to be getting a great quarterback down here. So, yeah, you're really relying on your skill positions. And in Superflex, you know, that can be risky. But I think you're still going to win a whole bunch of games. The question is, how is this going to work out for you in a couple of years? Because these kinds of players fall off in value more quickly than quarterbacks do. And you don't have a single quarterback that looks like a long-term stronghold to me. I guess Jameis is only 27. Bridgewater's like, oh, he's only 28. And then down here, you know, in terms of depth, there's like nothing down here that I would ever want to put in my starting lineup, besides maybe Slayton some weeks. So it's rough depth, but your top end is absolutely absurd. So championship viable roster, no doubt about it. Long-term outlook, still solid in the next couple years, but it might get rough. You might have to package somebody that's key to get a quarterback at some point. But I wouldn't be worrying about it too much right now. I would just ride this roster and see where it takes me. Even at 1-1, like playoffs are guaranteed unless you just get like 3 major injuries or something horrible. So, knock on wood. Nobody wants that. So, this roster, B-Raj, is also pretty excellent. This Kyler might be like the QB1. I would not want him over Mahomes and Superflex like overall, but for this year, I mean, it's just been absurd so far. This all speaks for itself. So that's looking nice. Derrick Henry, that's a football player that he's good at the sport. This is another man who's really good at the sport. Here's a guy who is he's pretty good at football. Oh, so is this guy. Oh, look at this guy. Oh, look at this guy. So we got a freaking loaded roster here. That's for sure. Mixon has always been a question mark player for me, and that will not change. If he gets hurt in like week 5, I would not be even remotely surprised. It's looking good so far, though, for sure. At Chicago, you know, that's going to be a tough matchup. You can't be too mad about that. This week will be tough, too, but, you know, it softens up. You'll get to probably run over some people, assuming he's healthy. So, I mean, it's looking good. Tight end, though, Ertz and Ingram are certainly very iffy at that position for me. So, I would definitely look to upgrade there if I could. I think you could certainly like, your depth is scary too. Like if you were to lose one of your three top wide receivers, what's left here, you know? Not a whole lot. Your QB depth is nice though. Maybe you try to package Wentz or something. You get a little bit more depth. And then you have like no picks. So a championship worthy roster. Couple of holes, but nothing major. You're at the most important spots. You have some seriously excellent young pieces. So this is one of the best rosters. I'm just trying to nitpick just to say that I had critically looked at every team, you know. And now we're going to look at the worst manager. I mean, just an absolute embarrassment to fantasy football. Pastor completely lucked his way into first place. I'm just kidding. This roster is excellent. It's absolutely awesome, especially given Sam Darnold's like improved performance. I almost wish I had tried to grab him somehow. Looking great. Nice at running back. You got a combination of like a dude who's kind of near the end of his prime but still playing really well, and a young potential superstar. You got one of the best in the business. Aging, but one of the best around. The best, like maybe ever at his position. He's still got several years of being good. Somehow you also have this. It hasn't been great, but come on, he's going to trample some fools at some point. Like, a better fantasy player than a real-life player, but absolutely viable fantasy-wise. Depth at quarterback. Some very decent depth at running back. Some nice, like, I mean, like, look at this potential home run that you got, like, super deep in a random-ass trade. You even got the Travis Kelce handcuff. Look at you. Not many picks. I mean, a couple of mid-round picks, but this is great. You've done awesome here. I'm pretty jealous of this team. You're looking good at every single position. You could recover if something tragic happened to one of your best players. How do you have David Montgomery on top of all this, man? This is awesome. This is a team that looks good now and in the future. So props to that. And we're looking at 43-ish minutes, so that feels pretty good. Overall, if I had to like make predictions, I want to say myself as a like championship front runner. I really do think I have something that I need. Bleh, I need like one or two of my receivers to continue to be wide receiver 1 level players. And if that happens, I think I have like a top 2-3 roster. Pastor looks awesome. This looks awesome. This looks absurd, but maybe a little more like fringy in terms of your depth and like how you could recover if an injury happens. And that's kind of my outlook of how this year's playoffs will go. Like the top 4 feels like the top 4, which is interesting 2 weeks in, because there's usually some variance where, you know, someone that has an insane team. I mean, this team's really good. Did he make the championship last year? I can't remember. I feel like it was Picard versus Zombie though. And you know, this obviously won the title, but it looks shakier than some of the top 4 to me. But yeah, I'm losing my voice. Too bad I couldn't have Stags here to help pick up some of the slack. I did my best to fill the void and keep talking, but yeah, it was a good time. I hope everyone enjoyed, and I'll probably do this again in a couple of weeks or something. Probably not every week, but and hopefully some trades happen that I can analyze between now and then. So thanks for watching, and see you later, guys.